Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Hayes. This is the Horizon Podcast for Women. And on this podcast, we are defining health and wellness and all the resilience for women over 40. So the podcast empowers women to thrive through life, to redefine what it looks like after 40. Understand that as well as a nurse, I am a nutrition and women's fitness coach, a speaker and advocate for women's health, mindset, and long life. Today, I'm super excited. I'm joined by an incredible guest who actually her name is Holly Porter. Holly is an international speaker, a 15-time bestseller author, and a creator of 11 startup companies. So I'm excited to talk to Holly because during COVID, she had a 70-day battle with COVID and emerged stronger and leading others to have renewed joy and energy. So, Holly, I'm going to have you finish up telling the audience a little bit more about you.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks, Michelle. I appreciate you having me on your show. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to your audience. This is great. Things change. There's nothing we all know in life. There's just changes, and we can either adapt to them or we can fight them. And fighting them doesn't always seem to be the best answer for me,
Right?
for sure. But yeah, my life definitely changed 4 years ago. Right now, I was in the hospital and I had two ventilations, meaning they stuck the tube down my throat and put me on a ventilator twice, and then they finished it off with a trachectomy, which is still the ventilator, but now it goes from in your throat to like literally in your throat, then down your throat. And I had so many experiences that were life changing. I had some out of body and a near death experience and a spiritual transformative experience. I didn't even know all those were different at the time, but yeah, going from being, we've raised 8 adult children and we have almost 19 grandkids. That kept us busy, and we always had 3 or 4 companies at a time. So just going from like all of that and that chaos to laying there in a bed and not even be able to wipe your own bum, that's
Wow.
just like big changes. So sometimes you just have to open yourself up and realize that you're depriving people of blessings to help you when you're used to the one being the server and now you're being served. Big
Right.
shift.
And and that's the thing, but because you've been of service to so many people, it, it it's hard obviously if you when you're that independent and you're that much in service, it's hard, as you said, for people to just accept the service. But then it's also, as you said, a gratitude that there's actually people there that's willing to
Yes.
serve.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a conference, that's where I got COVID, and came home and gave it to him, and so he was a couple days behind me, and he didn't ever have to be hospitalized. We did have the Delta version, but he had blood clots and had oxygen and things. So, at that time, we could have one person every 24 hours. So, I have twin sisters just younger than me, and they
Mhm.
just stepped right up and relatively right in the beginning, realized that I needed somebody there all the time, which is interesting because I'm very independent. But I
Right.
think just the accountability, to the medical staff, they were overwhelmed. There was 2 floors full of COVID, which was just rampant and very humbling, to hear stories later. I had someone come up to me and say they were dropping off medical equipment. That was kind of their side gig during COVID. It was one of my friend's husbands, and he just looked me right in the eyes and he said, "I was dropping off so many body bags there." I mean, talk about humbling. And he just looked at
Yeah.
me and got big tears in his eyes and he said he didn't even know me, before this first time we had met. And he said,
Mhm.
"I remember one day dropping off an order of body bags and praying over them that you wouldn't be coming out in one because his wife had told him how bad I was." And I just thought, wow, that talk about gratitude. It just
Mhm.
I wasn't alone. The whole world suffered. I can't think of anything that has happened in the history of time that everybody in the whole world didn't suffer so quickly at the same time. I mean, maybe I'm
That
wrong, but I've never been able to
no,
think of anything else.
in our lifetime, right? I mean, in our lifetime, this is
Yeah.
our world pandemic, and it's in our lifetime
Mm.
that we actually get to see this, and we also get to see a different side of humanity, um, at the same time, So that's the thing. So as I mentioned, so you built through all of that, you're coming out of that, but before that, you've built 11 startups. You survived this COVID, and you are somebody that continues to work in as an entrepreneur, empowering women. What is when you think about it, when you look back over that, and you look back over like maybe before COVID, your health. what role do you think your health, I mean, physical, emotional, spiritual, played a part so that you could come up with this sort of resilience and drive?
Well, you can read my book.
There you
I
go.
have a book about this whole story coming out 11/11, so this show may come out after that, called Near Death Shift, and it does talk about a lot of these stories. Talk about vulnerable, boy, like, I can't believe I'm telling this story in a book, and there's many things I could give you a whole list, but I would say mindset for sure. I've always been interested in personal development, probably for the last 15 years. I've really
Mhm,
studied it a lot. I was a coach for Think and Grow Rich. I was on the world tour for Think and Grow Rich, which is Napoleon Hill Foundation, and
mhm,
they have it's all about mindset and knowing your mind, body, soul, I feel like is all one, and they all need to
mhm,
have that balance, and when something's off, it's like I picture it as the infinity sign, which goes forever, right? It just circles around like an inverted 8, and if something's off, then there's a gap, and if the gap's
mhm.
open, then you can't flow, right? The infinity's not gonna keep
Right,
flowing.
right.
And so that's kinda how I think of it is that that mind preparation. I mean, I remember one of the nurses leaning down to me whispering in between my 2 intubations, "Do you wanna go back on the ventilator? If you don't keep your oxygen up, they're gonna revent you." And I think she wasn't trying to be mean. I think it was just it was a scare tactic for sure because I'm, like, trying to catch my breath so
I'm
hard.
just trying to catch your breath.
I mean, I couldn't keep it above 85, and that's why they reventilated me, but I mean, I did tell my mind I could do that, but there was also that moment about maybe 3 weeks in before I had a spiritual experience when I actually knew I would live, like that defining moment
Mhm.
for me, that I laid there and my prayers were changing. They were, "Alright, this sucks," and I'm telling God, "If you're not gonna get me better, then get me out of here. I'm kinda done fighting here. I'm good. I'm not afraid to die." And, it's funny because I got put right in check, but then I got a really spiritual experience from that, and I will
Mhm.
treasure that forever because that it told me I had a bigger purpose, and that in
Right,
a near-death experience, I didn't get to choose to come back or stay. I got sent back. I got told a
right.
couple specific things to do.
No time yet.
Mindset would be the
Yeah.
easiest answer for around that.
Wow, that's awesome. So, I mean, so you lead nonprofit focused on women leading with purpose. And you said that obviously you obviously had a purpose. That's why you were sent back. That's why you did not you had that near death experience, you had that spiritual experience, you saw and you heard things. So when it comes to as part of juggling a business, family life, personal growth, overall wellness. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I just want to know what my purpose is," but how do you lead with purpose then in these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, interesting enough, I just wanna say that that shift with the nonprofit, I was clearly given that name to start from this near-death experience, and I did it, and I wasn't given any extra instructions like, "Oh, your mission needs to be this." Well,
Mhm, mhm,
originally, the nonprofit, the 501(c)(3) was set up for long COVID sufferers because that point, there was over 100,000,000 suffering. Nobody knew anything about it. We were the test subjects, and there was a
mhm,
lot. I dealt with that and all those health issues that came after from being a perfectly healthy person. And so that's where it started, and it just didn't feel right. And
mhm.
about 2 years in, I literally got told while recording my podcast that was for long COVID, I was interviewing somebody who had their story, and I started reliving mine, and I couldn't breathe, and I was like, "What is this feeling? What is happening to my body?" And I got told not that this was not my mission anymore, and that was my last podcast for that mission.
Oh, wow.
And when you're
That's
told that, I was actually excited because I knew something was off for months, but I didn't know what.
mhm,
So I'd taken
mhm.
all the fundraisers off the table and thought, "Well, okay, when I figure it out, when God tells me whatever it is, then I'll
Yeah.
know." We'll talk about knowing. It was like, "Yeah, you know now." So that was when I was like, "Wow, why would God tell me to do this and start this nonprofit and then take it away from me?" And
Mm,
my, board members, who is also very holistic and very intuitive, she said, "If I remember, you didn't get told the mission, you got told the name." I
the
says,
name.
"Yeah." And she said, "Keep the name, change the mission." I mean, it was that simple for her, and it was like, "Oh." So then it was she said, "What will light you up?" Because what was happening, I think it was for my mental health more than anything to not have that my mission anymore because I focused so hard on getting better. I mean, I did everything I could to get better. Better's better
Mhm,
was my motto every day. What can I do to get better? And so
mhm.
many people that are sick I mean, I don't mean this offensive to anyone, but they like that victim mode. They like the
Right.
attention. And it was so negative because nobody wanted to hear about COVID anymore. Likely, did I? No. I mean, I wanted that to be way in my past, but it was my reality. And it is so many, and they're not getting better. And so there was all that. And so I just felt like it kept me in sickness space, not in wellness space. And I wanted to live in wellness space. So then
Right.
that's where I came up with, oh my gosh, my purpose came out of this. I never felt like before I had purpose. Like, sure, I
Mhm.
have the why, I have great kids and grandkids, and I live for them, and this is great. And what really I mean, when you're laying there almost dead, you're saying to yourself, "Huh, is this it? Like, is this the end?
Mhm.
I enough? Am I enough? Did I do enough? Did I serve enough? What kind of a legacy am I leaving?" You have all these thoughts going through your head. And so for me, that purpose came from this experience to know. And I had to go through, by the way, 2 years of complete, utter hell, to say the least, for 2 years after. I prayed every day I would have died because everything in my life went upside down. And, they say it gets better or it gets worse before it gets better. True testament here. I mean, I was just I was a wreck, and so that's when the purpose really started coming about. That's when all these changes came, and when I was ready to hear that answer and move forward with it, I got it, right? And so sometimes
Right.
when you get it, you don't understand. Later, you look back and go, "Oh, they say time will heal all wounds." You don't wanna hear that, and you can't focus on that when you're in it. But
Mhm.
remember that next time your audience, anyone listening, and you're in that moment or you're having a hard time right now and you're wondering, is this ever gonna be different or change? It will be. And you'll look back later and you'll say, "Oh, this was a lesson." And that was the question I needed to ask. This
Yeah.
is what lesson did I need to learn? Why did I have 2 years of this? Why couldn't I figure that out sooner? And, but that's again goes back to the whole mindset thing.
100%. And this is the thing, you always understand more when you look back, right? We don't, we think we want to see into the future and we want to see the next step, but the next step is like what comes from the last step you take. And this is a mindset that we have to cultivate, but that's not the world mindset. That is not the way how people see the world. People always want to see, okay, I don't think I've come that far, but the only way that you can know how you come that far is to look back where you've been. And then you will realize how far you've come.
It's true, and give yourself grace because you got through that fire, and now maybe you're enjoying the benefits of going through the pain. Now you get to enjoy the pleasure, don't look at it as that poor me, and
Mhm.
I always say the best thing you can do for someone else, figure out who you can serve. If you wake up and you're down that day, you will feel so much better if you do something for someone else, and honestly, I hate to say this because I struggle with it still. Who's the least person you wanna serve? That's who probably you
It's
should be
for
serving.
goodness yeah, because it really is gonna take your focus, to actually do it, right? So that's all you're gonna focus on. How can I get through this without, messing up? And your focus is off yourself then, because
Yeah.
you wanna focus on the thing itself. So, are you still running the nonprofit? Talk to me a little bit about that. How does it look? How does it
Well, it doesn't look that great right now because I have not put a ton of focus on it. I have a great board. They're all on board too when we do stuff. We really have let it sit because I had such a big mission. I had 2 things I was told to do. One's kind of a for-profit, one's a nonprofit. And,
Mhm,
I ended up with $1 million hospital bill from all of that. I ended up just
mhm,
not being able to work for about a year and a half. And so honestly, it was like, okay, I got to focus on money-making activities right now, and I didn't set my nonprofit up to get paid. I wasn't trying to get a salary, it was really to serve, and it
mhm,
probably always will be that way. So, looking for partnerships with other women companies owned, hopefully, because it is about women, and I have a soft heart for single women because I've been there, and military women, and women that are diverse. I'm just all for that because women struggle anyway. That either they
right,
don't
yes,
make
we
the
do.
income men do, and when you add, different backgrounds and ethnicities, and you add single moms, and you add military, it's like those women speak to me even louder. Like, I feel like those are more the group I wanna serve if we're niching it down even farther because they don't have the same struggles, they have more struggles, I feel.
Yeah, 100%. So what is your profit business? What is how does that serve and empower others?
Yeah, so it's called Retreat R&R, and there's a bunch of divisions to it, so again, you can only focus on one of them at a time. I've got great people on the team, but there's so a picture the software piece of it is like what Airbnb does, but for
Mhm.
retreats. So retreat
Okay.
leaders want to find venues, like you're a person, say, on Airbnb and you wanna go stay in Chicago and you're looking on Airbnb to find a place, just shift that to retreats. So now retreat
Mm,
leaders book a retreat venue, and then retreat leaders can put their retreat on there and list it and have other people come and join them that way. So it's a software platform, but it's in development. It's gonna cost us still I probably need to raise still another $1,000,000 for it. It's no small
mm.
task.
Right, right.
And we do a
So
concierge service where we help people do their own retreats. So we come in and do all the logistics for them. And then because I'm a real estate broker of 20 years, we have a real estate division that we help buy and sell luxury retreat properties. And eventually we'll have that international. Right now, we're trying to scoop it down to Utah's where I'm at. So that's our beachhead market to start. But
mhm,
so there's
mhm.
just like so much, I feel like everything is just new and startup and a lot of focus going in different places, so
Well, you've done this before. You've built 11 startups in the past. You
yeah.
are very resilient. I can already tell. Focus.
Before, now I definitely am, I just have health setbacks that slow you down, but I'll tell you what, that was another I call them God gifts, and I've had them all along the last 4 years. I feel like that I was put in a coma to sit still and listen because I wasn't headed where I needed to be, and I feel like the setbacks with my health, with all the long COVID, same thing, but they're like 6-week setbacks, and then the next year, 6 weeks. This year, I had a 10-week setback, and I still traveled and did everything, like, while I was having the setback, but it was awful. I didn't feel good, my pain was horrible, the fatigue was horrible, and I thought about it after the 10 week, and I thought, "What can I do different so I don't have to go through this again?" It was that, it was that same thing, like, where do I shift? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
realized that I'm gonna handle things differently. I always know I get 2 weeks of warning. First week, I'm super fatigued and tired, and you're just like if you haven't had fatigue, it's kinda like fibromyalgia. It's like that if you have that. It's you just all of a sudden you crash. An hour I could be talking to you, and in an hour, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm done for the day." Like, you just
Mhm.
can't function anymore. And I think that the second week, I get the pain, and it comes like a level 4 to 7 pain all day long, head to toe. Weird. And so I'm like, "Okay, you got 2 weeks of warning before everything started." And so
Right.
next time,
So
I'm gonna
this
handle it different.
this all stems from the fact that of this is all stems from COVID.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
I had no drugs before I walked in the hospital and walked out on 12. I'm not on any now, I slowly got
mhm.
off of them, but that's my thinking. I'm not against drugs, I just am more holistic, and I feel I do a ton of nutrition. I pop probably, gosh, 40 different supplements a day, no lie. I haven't really counted, but a lot. A whole handful in the morning and a whole handful at night, and do a couple other drink supplements during the day because I'm sure I live in that fear of getting
Yeah,
sick again. I mean, I was told if I got COVID again, I wouldn't make it. I ended up with the lung disease. But even that, when you look at I got a lung disease, didn't know anything about it. Doctor Google will always tell you you're dying. So don't
100%.
don't go there. And I had a 2 to 4 year lifespan. Well, it's been 4 years now, and remember that better's better. Last time I went to my pulmonologist a couple months ago, he said, "You know what? I'm so impressed with the way things are looking." He goes, "You don't even have to do your CAT scan and your pulmonary function test next year. Just come do a check-in." I was like, "Yes."
Thank God for that.
I
That,
worked hard
as
to
you
get
said.
there.
So, you have people listening onto this podcast who's probably going through the same thing, who's probably saying, I don't know, how do I get this energy that Holly has? Because I've been there and I can't function and I can't move. So we talk about the mindset, and I like to talk to people about that mindset of health and resilience and contributing. And I think you touched on it a little bit, is about serving others, but how do you like protect that energy for yourself when you're managing? I mean, this sounds that your huge retreat project sounds huge. So how do you protect that energy? Because that is, I think that might be key as well. As you said, you're going to do it different next time. So how do you
Yeah,
protect that?
the awareness for one, like, I feel like, first of all, stress causes every disease there is, I don't care what anyone says, it does, and it intensifies everything, and so, like, for me, a weird thing, and I know this won't apply to probably to anybody but me, I'll get a pain right where my trachea was, it's, like, almost on both sides, I'll start feeling like a stress there, almost like how you would get a sore throat where you're like, "Ooh, I might be coming down with something." That's like
Mm,
I found my first sign, and when that starts happening, then I just slow down whatever I'm doing. So I know I talk fast, and I mean, believe me, I'm way slower than I used to be, way slower. And that's a sign for me, like those so I think it's listening to your body. The other thing I wanna say, while I was writing a chapter in my book recently, I realized I was part of Rotary International. So that's a service club, and I think 1911 or I think that was the year they started, I could be off on that, but a long time, right? And it was a
Mhm.
men's club, now they allow women, but it is their motto is service above self. And we did
Mm.
great projects. Every year we did some local ones, we always had an international one we did. It was great learning lessons for my kids as they grew up, they got to do service projects in Mexico. Anyway, then it dawned on me one day while I was writing that chapter and I was writing all these things that we had done. So service above self, it's something they recite every week at the meeting and, I usually could just throw it off my tongue, but I realized that is off
Mhm.
because think about it. If you what do they say on an airplane? Cover your
Stop
own
yourself.
mask first before you help anyone else. And I
Mhm.
thought service above self. So if I give from an empty cup and I'm pouring into everybody else and serving, or, this long COVID hits me, but I got a whole checklist of stuff I have to get done.
Mm.
That's not serving me. If I'm not better, how can I give? And
Right.
so I don't like that motto. And I changed it in the last part of the book. I do a bunch of like learning lessons around shift, the acronym. And
Mm.
I just teach that. I'm like, "No, you have to make sure you fill your cup first. You have to be first. Your exercise comes first before you give." Yeah, think about all the things that you need to keep yourself healthy because, I mean, that's a form of wealth, is your health. That's the biggest form of wealth to
That's
me
the
is
biggest form of wealth. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, you mentioned your book, and we haven't really talked about your book. So tell me a little bit about your book. I mean, I know it's stemmed from your bout of COVID, your life experience, but tell me a little bit more. I really want to hear more about this book and like what are some of the things that we can look forward to reading and discovering, I guess, in the book.
Yeah, well, it's so top of mind right now. I don't mean to throw that up on anyone because my books are never about the sales. For me, it's about serving and the information that I've learned, and I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable now in what I've learned. So, it's called Near Death Shift, and SHIFT stands for surrender, hope, intuition, faith, and transformation. And so we use that at the end. So the first 9 chapters are about my story and, things that I went through even before COVID, it just a lot of lessons in there. And then 10 through 17 is all the lessons I learned around the shift. And we talk
Mm.
about 8 different like, if you take a life will and look at all those items on there, it's about all that. And just how I got out of that, and I tell a little bit more stories in there about just different things I went through. I have it listed under a spiritual and personal development because really that's what I feel like I stand for. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
is a memoir, but I don't wanna call it that because I don't want people buying it because of me. I want them to buy it because of the shift they're gonna see out of it, and
Right.
that's what it's about for me.
Right. So I love the acronym SHIFT because I think it's very important to understand that no matter what stage in life you're, you can shift, right? You can shift. Yes, a lot of, especially women out there, as you said, always thinking, how is it going to be different this time? Why can't I shift? Why can't I seem to get myself into this? So in those acronyms, can you give us like a couple of things as to how to go about creating the shift that they can take away maybe one thing today? Hey, what can I do today to start that shift?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one is the best one to put in the order is surrender. That's what I found in most things in my life and I think if other people will think about things in your life, first you have to surrender. Change isn't going to happen until you are ready to just say, all right, whatever your highest belief is, mine's God, but all right, God, I'm giving it to you. I mean, we've heard that, but do you
Mhm.
understand that? Do you understand that healing and that beginning and that change just by finally saying surrender? I learned that word really strongly when years ago when I was doing hypnosis, and it was actually the first time I was hypnotized in a group of like 300 people in the room. We're all laying on the floor being hypnotized for a long time, like an hour and a half. And
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I was under hypnosis, but I had these crazy experiences, a whole 'nother show I could tell you about. And I realized it took me about 8 months to figure it out, but when I said to one of my mentors, I said, "I don't feel like I'm getting hypnotized." And he said that's what he said the word. He says, "Just surrender." It's like your
Surrender.
mind's trying to control everything,
Mhm.
whereas if you just step back so I'm just telling you one, but, just
Mhm.
letting go and letting go. And when I let go, I started realizing what I actually saw. Like, for instance, I was hanging from a cliff by one arm in, like,
Mhm.
what looked like the Grand Canyon. They were all the red canyons,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I live in Southern Utah, and St. George, Utah was where I moved to within a year after that. It was like this vision of 5 years in the future, and I'm
Mhm.
hanging there, and the guy said, "You know you wouldn't have got hurt if you'd have let go." I said, "Absolutely." He's like, "Then let go." So it was like this metaphor of what I saw was I was
Mm.
hanging on to that old life. Well, 5 years in the future that I couldn't see, I was in those red mountains. That's because St. George is where I moved to, like, a year later, which was 5 years in the future too. That's where I was supposed to live, is in the red mountains. That's why I was hanging there. And it was just like, "Oh, let go, surrender." So that's just a quick story to say that's for me, that's what helped that shift for me.
Well, that's amazing because, you know, personally, we say the word, you know what? I think sometimes we come to the point of surrender when we don't see a way to go next, or we've done everything in our power, right? And I think that's the part that is inspiring. Also understanding that you can only go so far in your own power. And if you surrender, is not, I think people need to understand that surrender doesn't mean that you're giving up.
Yeah.
It's so far away from that. It's understanding that for you to go from point A to point B, there has to be a different part of you. There has to be a different force, and that's what you're surrendering to. You're surrendering to the force. You're not giving up on whatever it is that you're thinking about. Is surrendering to the force. So I'm glad that you actually like that story about, because I find that even a lot of times if people want to say, "Oh, why don't you try hypnosis?" And you're like, "Nobody's gonna be able to hypnotize me."
I'm such a believer. It's interesting because a lot of people say with near death stories, when people say they were hypnotized, and it was almost like another near death for me because I knew there were gaps in my story. And out of
Mhm.
integrity to my book, I wanted it to be clear. Oh, it was amazing. I got so many other symbols. It was kind of like the rest of the story to the story. And I don't, I, but I think for as far as therapy, if people have ever considered hypnosis, you can come out of it at any time. You can open your eyes. You do have control. People are thinking, "Oh, they're gonna molest me while I'm in a session." I mean, there's just crazy thoughts around it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're safe, you're completely safe, and you can do a year's worth of therapy, 5 years probably worth of therapy if they're good, in one session. I mean, how would it be to not have to relive talk therapy forever? Sorry
Oh,
to all you
yeah.
therapists that are out there having
That's
these
the
same
whole,
clients
yeah.
for
Well,
years.
sorry, but I mean, you and I, in you being an entrepreneur, a survivor of COVID, having gone all through that, I'm sure you've probably been told that you needed to go to maybe see someone about what you experienced because,
Oh, yeah. I did. I'm not
yeah.
gonna deny it. I went to trauma therapy because anybody that's in the ICU for a period of time, you will have PTSD and you will have trauma. I never suffered from that before. I mean, I had occasional depression,
Hmm.
had all these kids, and, sometimes I'd be postpartum, whatever, when we didn't
Hmm.
really have labels for it back then. Yeah, it was like I went until I felt like "Alright, I'm good," you know? I mean, I do talk things out to solve things, that is how I solve things, but I
Hmm.
don't need to, like, dwell on them. I'm just kinda like, "Alright, we're done." Like, this is
I,
how I
you,
think of it. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
because you've grown, and you know yourself, and that's
Yeah,
that's the part I always feel that in talk therapy you need to get to. You need to get to the part where you know what, I've gotten the clarity, I've gotten the sense that I know where I'm going now, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be focusing on that, but it means that you can grow. You've grown through that. Now let's do something else. Let's get to another level.
not everyone can do that. I wanna respect that, and can I challenge them listening to realize what you can do? Like, for me, if it's I'm gonna be angry for someone, how long am I gonna be angry? Am I gonna stay angry for this hour? Is it gonna ruin my whole day? Am I gonna sulk for a month? Like, for me, how long does that look? I'm gonna allow that, feel through all those emotions, and then move on. Because when you dwell, there's your stress, there's your hormone imbalances, there's all that stuff coming up. So I think just figure out what it looks like for you. I mean, if you wanna go out and scream in a jar for 5 minutes and then you're good and come back in and you're a new person, whatever it looks like, go smash some
Whatever it looks
glass.
like.
whatever it is for you, make it happen and get over it because
I
living
also
in it.
think that's a good point because, I think sitting in, as you said, stress is honestly underlying cause of so many um health and diseases and stuff like that. And we don't understand how important it is for us to relieve those stress and relieve those underlying resentments. I don't think people really grasp the idea how underlying resentment is actually a stressor on your nervous system over and over again. And because we push it down so far, it's there always. It's like mold.
Yeah, and I get constant reminders because long COVID has 200 symptoms attached to it. I probably had probably close to 100 of them at one time or another, like, just different things, which is kinda every symptom you can think of is attached to it, but even now, you get these body it's so hard to explain, they're like body vibrations. It's like
Mhm.
your whole insides are doing this. It's so weird, and I thought one time my husband was, like, I don't know, shaking his foot or something in the bed. I didn't know what he was doing, and I was just like, "That's so annoying," while I was trying to sleep, and then I went out of town and was in a bed by myself, and that was happening and realized, "Oh my gosh, this is, like, internal," and then I realized that was one of my long COVID symptoms, and it's just, like, a weird feeling, and same with, like, ringing in your ears. I mean, those are constant reminders to me, "Okay, you're not all better yet." You gotta slow down. When you have ringing in your ears, people that have tinnitus is so annoying. I don't even know if there is a cure. Never seen one, but I have to listen to, like, binaural beats in my ears. I'll listen to those all night because it sounds better than the sirens sometimes going off with
Going off
re
in your head. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I keep my eyes covered because of sensory issues to light, and there's just, like, so many things that you just but like I said, I'm solution based, so what's gonna fix it? I don't wanna dwell on it. I wanna, like, what's gonna make it better? I'm always the stat search, 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 and anyway, that's just my personality.
That's amazing, and I love your story about resilience because I love your story about how women, especially women, like this show is about women. It's for women over 40. It's women who are actually dealing with what you're going through right now, and I really am glad that there is actually a book for maybe someone to go to and understand that maybe some of the things that they're going through that they're not going crazy.
Mhm.
This is
Right.
because I feel also from what your standpoint is, I don't know if you there's a lot of people who've actually gone through COVID who are still feeling very much alone and who are feeling that their life is over even though they're breathing because of these symptoms that they've having years and years later. I had a friend of mine whose daughter had COVID and ended up coming out with cardiac disease, and now she has to live with cardiac heart disease for the rest of her life. Never had any symptoms that before that, and
Right.
it's very scary when people think that. But how is it the next person had COVID and had nothing going on? They had a cold, they had some body aches, and then they're on with their life, right?
There's no rhyme or reason, and no one case I think is the same. You
Right.
take those 200 symptoms, and how many variables can that make? Millions,
And
probably.
and try to build a life around manage it. So I'm glad. Thank you so much for your insights into you've even as a healthcare professional now I'm learning things because we're on the minute. We're seeing people come in every day. One thing every day it's like, okay, we're dealing with this right now. When you leave our presence and when you go out into the world, half of the time we don't know what is going on with the patients until maybe they come back again and they say like, well, since that time, this is what's happened. So it's enlightening to me a little bit to hear about 4 years later what people can be experiencing.
People are
Um,
getting better though with long COVID, I have to say. I mean,
yeah.
I have lifelong I mean, I got rheumatoid arthritis from it. I put that in remission just from
Mm,
probably all the good nutrition and things I've done to get
right.
better. I
I,
did a
I,
hyperbaric. I own one. I shouldn't say I own. And I got it in every day for 90 minutes. It's a huge commitment, but that's part of self-care, taking care of yourself, and it was really self-care became my health-care for me
right.
because that was how I took care of myself is to take care of my health, and I think that should be for everybody.
Yeah, and that's it. It's because we also people, a lot of women that I work with, they struggle with consistency, but you're not doing it for the minute. You're doing it for the long term. And when
Absolutely.
you understand what you do is for the long term,
Yes.
right? So, I'm so happy to have you on the show because
You.
for someone who's put rheumatoid arthritis in remission, has come off a lot of medication that she works at the hospital with, is building a business, is thriving and surviving, and is actually helping other women stay stronger longer. I am super psyched to have you on the show.
Well, I always think if it helps one person changes something that makes their life better, totally worth it.
And thank you. So tell me a little bit, where can we forget your book? Because it sounds like also I think there's probably a little bit of funny stuff. Like you sound like you probably throw some humor in the book as well.
Yeah, yeah, all the learning chapters have some humor things because I had some crazy stories around that, and to me, if you can't smile, how do you what's life worth if you can't laugh a little and even at yourself, Whatever. I did some crazy stuff, especially under drugs.
That's
That's
awesome.
if
So where
you'll
can we get your book?
yeah, so do you have show notes that you post?
I will.
So the best thing I'll do, I'll send you because I'm not sure I did yet, a link tree, and that has like all my social medias, my website. It'll have a link to the book because it'll probably be live by the time, at least how to get it by the time this comes out. So yeah, that
Right.
one link will get you anywhere you need. My email's on there. I mean, it's easy peasy. So I'll just send you that.
I will also put Holly's Instagram and stuff on the show notes so that you can actually go and connect with her, and especially women. We want to know how your nonprofit is good because that sounds amazing. Also, there are people who are looking for ways to do retreats. Again, if you follow Holly, you will actually start seeing more about her retreats venues and stuff like that. So I'm excited about that as well. So, Holly, thank you again so much for the show. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your openness about your life and how you've survived long COVID and how you're continuing to thrive and help other people. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for that enlightenment.
Yeah, thank you.
So, guys, thank you so much for the episode for joining me on this episode of the Horizon podcast for women over 40. And I really hope today that Holly has given you some stories about seeing resilience and purpose and how focusing on yourself instead of service over self all the time. You have to understand it's always also about self, because as Holly said, you can't serve from an empty cup. And if you continue to put everything and others above your own self, which we do as women, we reap the benefits, but it's not always not the good benefits. So remember, it's about putting your wellness and putting your purpose and your whatever it is purpose feels like to you. You put that all together, your life will be more vibrant. And it radiates to you, it radiates to those around you, and you can never go wrong with that. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you again, Holly, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.